Good evening, students, and welcome to Sri Vidya Mother Higher Secondary School, Uttagarai. Today, we are going to discuss about the 11th chapter, 11th Bio-Botany. The chapter is 11th Transport in Plants. It is one of the important chapter of plant physiology. Let us discuss about what is called transport and how they takes place in plants. What is the necessity of transport? See, transport, it is nothing but movement of water molecules, water or minerals or food substances from the region of one to the part of another plant body. These are called translocations, are also called transport. See, the transport actually it is a necessary for transport of food materials or water molecules or food substances from one region to the or all parts of the plant body. So which is play an important role for this transport. For example, xylem and phloem, these are the important role, they play an important role in this process. Then what is called xylem and phloem is nothing but complex tissue, are also called transporting tissues, are also called vascular tissues. So the complex tissues such as xylem and phloem, they play an important role. How they play an important role for this transport, how they are evolved. Since 450 million years ago, see the plants they are slowly migrated from their sophisticated water sources to the landmass are also newly formed lands. So plants are slowly migrated. In most primitive plants, for example, bryophytes, pteridophytes, that present water plant, flowering plants, for example, present flowering plants. And in addition to that, gymnosperms. Among these, the bryophyte and pteridophytes, these are the most primitive land plants. The bryophytes are called non-vascular cryptogams. Non-vascular cryptogams, they are the non-flowering plants. They do not have any conductive tissues. They are originated in the water land. They slowly transformed into the landmass. So these are the considered as amphibious plant kingdoms. They are living both water and landmass, bryophytes. But whereas in pteridophytes, the prehistoric pteridophytes, it is a first land successful plants. They are successfully invaded in the landmass. These are pteridophytes. Then from the pteridophytes are developed gymnosperm, the last flowering plants, that is nothing but angiosperms. See how these flowering plants are also pteridophytes, bryophytes are, they are slowly migrated from their original water life to the landmass. If they are migrated to the landmass, they could not get survive because land is a harsh environment. Plants, they do not get survive because availability of water is very depth and there is no any specialized organ for absorbing these waters. So that is why some of the migrating plants on the landmass, they could not get survived. They are failed to survive. But rest of the plant species gets adapted themselves according to their surrounding or environment by adapting, by developing these special kinds of tissues called complex tissues are also called vascular tissues are developed. Vascular tissues is nothing but xylem and phloems. How these plants are adapted themselves in the harsh environmental conditions by developing the xylem and phloem. So the xylem and phloem, it is play an important role for transportation of water and minerals to distributed all parts of the plant body. These are the evolving of xylem and phloems. The next, what is the necessity? What is the need for transport? What is the essential for transport? Why the plants transport water and minerals to all parts of the plant body? What are the essentials? See, the transport is essentials. And let us better to understand to take a diagram. It is a shoot apex. It is a root system. And it's a stem. So what are the essential of transport? See, where the source of water, soil is the source of water. It is a soil particles. Water is present in the soil. The water is absorbed by the root system. It gets translocated upward directions to the leaf because of food preparations. Leaf, it is an important organ for photosynthesis. You know what is called photosynthesis? Synthesis or manufacture of food material with the help of carbon dioxide, water, sunlight and chlorophyll pigment. Chlorophyll pigment. It's a green color pigment present in the leaf. So, during photosynthesis, water it is one of the raw materials needed for photosynthesis. Where the source of water? Soil is a source of water. This water is absorbed by the root system. It gets translocated or travel up to the leaf for photosynthesis, synthesis of food materials. That is why translocation is essential. If the photosynthesis is arrested, what will happen? There is no synthesis of food. If the food synthesis is arrested, what will happen? There is no consumers. So we are the consumers. We are totally depends upon this plant material for the purpose of food material. So for the synthesis of food material, through a process called photosynthesis, water is essential. So that is why the water is translocated upward direction to the leaf. Likewise or similarly, food is prepared by the leaf, it gets translocated to the other part. Translocated to the other parts through phloem. Water gets translocated upward directions through xylem. These are the xylem. So it's nothing but xylem is a water conducting element. Phloem is a food conducting elements. So water translocated only upward direction. It is a unidirectional. Remember, unidirectional. So water translocation takes place only upward directions. Only it is a unidirectional. But whereas in phloem, synthesized in one part by leaf, but they are translocated to the other part, including root, stem, leaf, and also fruit, seed. So these are the storage organs. Root, stem, leaf, flower, fruit, seed, these are the storage organs. But leaf is a sources of food material. The food is translocated from the sources to the sink. What is called sink? Sink is nothing but storage organ. Which is a storage organ? Root is a storage organ. For example, carrot, beetroot. Food is synthesized by leaf, but is stored by root. Stem also storage. For example, potato, underground stem. Sugar cane, stem is become thick and swollen due to the storage of food material. Leaf, green leaf vegetables. Flower, cauliflower, storage of food material. All the fruits and also seed also storage of food material. So phloem is translocated from the leaves to the root, downward direction. Again from the root to the leaf and stem, upward direction. So it is nothing but bidirectional. Bidirections. So these are the complex tissue. Xylem, it is a conduction of water only upward direction. It is a unidirectional. And phloem, translocation of food in the form of sucrose, both upward direction and downward direction. These are called bidirection. So that is why the both xylem and phloem, they are interconnected to each other. It depends upon each other. So these are called translocation. That is why translocation is essential. Remember, then what is called transport? Transport is nothing but moving of or translocations of water and mineral salt from the one region to the another regions or all parts of the plant body. These are called transport, which is playing an important role for transport. Xylem and phloem is nothing but a complex tissue. Xylem is a water containing elements, phloem is a food containing elements. And why their necessity? What is the need for transport? Transport is essential for synthesis of food material and storage of food materials. Okay, the next, based on their distance traveled by the food material and waters, based on the distance traveled by water and also food material, they may be classified into two types. One is short distance transport, and another one is long distance transport. It's based on the distance. Then what is called short distance transport? It is also called cell to cell. It is covered only limited area. Only a few cells are involved. It is mainly involved in lateral directions. Lateral directions only. How lateral directions? Take, it is a root system. It is a root, primary root, secondary root, tertiary root and root S. It is a soil particles. So the water is absorbed by the root S. It gets translocated, connected to the xylem. Center part, it is called xylems. So xylem, it's a cell to cell or short distance transport. It's covered only in the limited area alone. And it's linked to the root S to the xylem. If the water is entered the xylem, there gets translocated upward direction to the stem to the leaves. This is cell to cell. Lateral directions only. For example, osmosis. Then diffusion. Then imbibition. These are the example for short distance transport, or also called cell to cell transport. And I will explain later what is called osmosis, diffusion and imbibition. The next is long distance transport. It is nothing. This type of transport it is involved within the network of xylem and phloem. Network of xylem and phloem. What do you mean? So the long distance transport the food materials or water minerals from where to where, organ to organ. It's a long distance. Or within the xylem, network of xylem and phloem. Xylem is composed of 4 kinds of cells. Tracheids, vessels, xylem parenchyma, then xylem fibers. It is composed of 4 kinds of cells. Tracheids are the chief sources of water containing elements in Pteridophyte and gymnosperm. The huge tree, tallest tree, that belongs to gymnosperms. Maximum taller trees are belongs to gymnosperms. How waters are translocated until the tip of the plant body with the help of tracheids. The tracheids are the water containing elements in Pteridophyte and gymnosperms. Tracheids nothing but they arrange one above another. It look like a long PVC pipe like structures. And vessels are the water containing elements in angiosperms. It's nothing but flowering plants. So these are the 2 water containing elements in xylem. So from xylem, tracheids and vessels are mainly involved in the translocation of water in species of Pteridophyte and also angiosperm. That is a long transport. For example, xylem. And a long transport of food takes place in the phloems. It is also composed of 4 kinds of cells. Then first one is sieve elements. Sieve elements. It is composed of sieve cell and sieve tubes. The next, companion cells. Companion cells. Phloem parenchyma, then phloem fibers. Among these 4, these 2 are mainly involved in the translocation of food materials. Sieve elements, sieve cell, sieve tubes. Sieve cells are involved in translocation of food in pteridophyte and gymnosperms. Sieve tubes involved in the translocation of food materials in angiosperms. Companion cells are only involved in the translocation of food materials in angiosperms, I mean flowering plants. Remember? So, this type of translocation, it's a long distance transport. For example, ascent of sap. Ascent of sap. Then second one is translocation of solute. These are the 2 examples for long distance transport. Then what is called ascent of sap is nothing but upward directions of water along with the mineral salt to the all parts of the plant body through xylem. These are called ascent of sap. It's a long distance transport. Ascent of sap is nothing but upward movement of water along with the mineral salt to all parts of the plant body. That's the important one. Next, translocations of solute. I mean, from source to sink. It is a source. It is an area for synthesis. Leaf is an area for manufacture or synthesis of food material. But root is an area for storage. So, translocation of solute molecules in the form of sucrose from where to where? Source to sink. Sink is nothing but storage organ. Either may be root, stem, leaf, flower, fruits. These are the translocation. It is nothing but long distance transport, otherwise called organ to organs. Next. And based on their distance traveled by the solute and food material, they may be classified. One is a long distance transport, another one is a short distance transport. The next, based on energy required, energy expenditure, the translocations may be classified into, one is passive transport, then another one is active transport. It is based on their energy expenditure. The translocations may be classified into active transport and passive transport. What do you mean by passive transport? It is one of the slow process. There is no requirement of energy, or ATP is not essential for translocations of molecules or food molecules from one region to the another regions. It is a downhill process. It's a better easy to understand. The movement of molecules from higher concentration to lower concentrations. These are called passive transport. Passive transport is nothing but translocation or movement of molecule from its higher concentration to its low concentrations. So, it is a downhill process. Downhill transport or downhill process. These are called passive transport. Along with concentration gradient, concentrations of solution, concentration gradient. It's nothing but movement of molecule from its region of higher concentration to the region of low concentration. These are called passive transport, but of course it is a slow process, passively transported only in a small distance or short distance only. It is also called downhill transport, and no need of ATP. Remember, energy expenditure is not essential for this transport. These are called passive transport. Example for passive transport: diffusion, facilitated diffusion, osmosis, then imbibitions. I will explain later what is called diffusion, facilitated diffusion, osmosis, imbibition. We will explain one by one. These are the example for passive transport. Then what is called active transport? It is opposite, dead opposite to the passive transport is called active transport. Active transport is nothing but movement of molecules from its region of lower concentration to the higher concentration. So it is uphill transport. Uphill transport. That is active transport. Against concentration gradient. Against concentration gradient. I mean, then what do you mean by against concentration gradient? Movement of molecule from the next active transport, it is opposite to the passive transport. I mean, dead opposite to the passive transport. What is called active transport? It is also called uphill transport. I mean, translocation of food materials or molecule from low concentration to the higher concentrations. So hence it is also called uphill transport. Then against concentration gradient. What will be against concentration gradient? From low concentration to higher concentration. Definitely they require ATP. So ATP is nothing but energy is required. Energy requiring process. But whereas in passive transport, there is no requirement of any energy, is not essentials. So it is a downhill process, it is uphill process. So what's the differences between active transport and passive transport? It's important questions. Passive transport, it is nothing but movement of molecules from its region of higher concentration to the low concentration. Active transport, movement of water molecules from its region of low concentration to higher concentration, first point. Then second, passive transport, it is a downhill process. But whereas in active transport, it is a uphill transport. Then third one is no need of energy. I mean, energy expenditure is not essential for passive transport. But here, energy expenditure is essential. Such energy is obtained from where? Through respirations. Energy is obtained from respirations. So respiration, what is called respiration? Oxidation of various organic molecules such as food materials or glucose gets oxidized. During this process, a lot of energy is released along with this energy which is utilized for various metabolic activities. So active transport required, metabolic energy is required. This metabolic energy is obtained from the respiration process. The last point, passive transport, it is a physical process. It utilizes physical process, for example, gravity and concentrations. Active transport, it is a biological process that utilizes energy. So, based on their energy expenditure, the transport may be classified into one is a passive transport, another one is an active transport. Passive, it is a slow process, no need of energy. Active is a fast process actually, but they required metabolic energy is required. It is a downhill process, it is a uphill process. The next, we will explain one by one. First one is cell to cell transport. So already I point out the cell to cell transport, it is a slow or covered only small area and involve only few cells only involved. These are the facilitators for the long distance transport. So, is the short distance transport, it is also called cell to cell transport. It driven the forces for either maybe passively or maybe actively. I mean, transport of molecules either maybe passively or maybe actively. So, it's further classified into two types. Cell to cell transport. It is classified into two types. One is passive transport, then active transport. Passive transport further classified into two types. One is diffusion. Another one is facilitated diffusion. The facilitated diffusions involve with the help of proteins, specialized proteins that are present in the cell membrane. These are called channel protein, then carrier protein. Channel protein, there are two types of channel protein. For example, porine. Another one is aquaporine. Carrier proteins are three types depending upon the based on their holding of molecules or transport of direction of transport. These carrier proteins are three types. One is uniport, symport, then third one is antiport. So these are the types of facilitated diffusions. We will explain one by one. Active transport, energy expenditure is required. It is also translocation of food or molecules from its region of low concentration to higher concentration through these two types of proteins. Channel protein, carrier protein, then along with pump actions. Pump action is nothing but sodium and potassium pump actions. So these are the types of cell to cell. Already we know that what is called passive transport or active transport. You know that the passive transport, it's a slow process. How that takes place through diffusion and facilitated diffusions. Now what is called diffusions? Diffusion is nothing but, for example, when we expose to the mosquito coil or open a perfume bottle in a closed room, what will happen? We can smell the odor everywhere in the room. In a closed room actually, when we expose to the mosquito coil or open a perfume bottle, so the perfume molecules are evenly distributed throughout the room. So we can smell the odor everywhere in the room. This is the process of diffusions. So in diffusion is nothing but movement of molecules continuously move and randomly in all directions. That is called diffusions. Without any barrier, without expenditure of any energy, energy is not required. Metabolic energy is not required. Move from higher concentration to lower concentrations. How move from higher concentration to lower concentration? Based on their concentration gradient without any barrier. So how can we define the term diffusion? Diffusion is nothing but net movement of molecules from its higher concentration to the its region of low concentrations along with the concentration gradient until the equilibrium is obtained. That is called diffusions. Right? Okay. How can we define the term diffusion? Take A and B region. A region contains solute particles. These are solute particles. More solute particle, less solvent. Less solvent. Solvent is nothing but water. Water is a pure solvent. More solute particle. B is contain less solute particle but more solvent. More solvent. Now, the movement of molecules from its region of higher concentration. These are the higher concentration to its region of low concentration, lower concentration along the concentration gradient until the equilibrium is attained. Yes, until the equilibrium is attained without any barrier. This is the process of diffusions. This is called diffusions. Then what are the characteristic features of diffusions? Characters of diffusion. Diffusion is one of the slow process and a passive process. Passively, no need of ATP. ATP is not required. It is a characters of diffusion. Second, it is a independent of living system. They do not depend on any living systems because diffusion is a physical force. They utilize a physical force. For example, gravity, concentration gradient. So they do not depend on any living systems. So these are secondary characteristics features of diffusion. The third one is actually it is obviously gases and liquids. I mean, diffusion takes place distinctly gases and liquids. The next rate of diffusion actually faster over a short distance. And slow, very extremely slow over a long distance. I mean, the rate of diffusion is inversely proportional to the distance. If the distance is increasing, the rate of diffusion is slow. If the distance is shorter, the rate of diffusion is faster. So, the rate of diffusion is faster during short distance. The rate of diffusion is very extremely slow, long distance. The next, rate of diffusion is determined by temperature, concentration gradient, then density. So these are the factors which determine the rate of diffusion. I mean, temperature, it is directly proportional to the diffusion. The rate of diffusion is directly proportional to the temperature. I mean, if the temperature is increasing, the rate of diffusion is also automatically increasing. Similarly, concentration gradient, it is also direct proportional. If the concentration of solute molecules are increasing, rate of diffusion is also increasing. But whereas in density, it is inversely proportional to the diffusions. I mean, density, it is inversely proportional to the diffusion. 1 by root d. D is nothing but density. It is nothing but diffusions. So these are the characteristic features of diffusions. The next, what is the significance of diffusions? Yes, diffusion is must or essential. For example, gaseous exchange. For example, carbon dioxide and oxygens. It is exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygens. between the atmosphere and the leaf through stomata. Stomata is minute opening present on the outer surface of the leaf. Its stomata are open during daytime for gaseous exchange. So carbon dioxide is essential for photosynthesis. During photosynthesis, carbon dioxide is essential. It is also enter into the stomata, and also respiration. During respiration, oxygen is absorbed. So this process takes place with the help of diffusions. It's a first significance. And the second significance of diffusion is actually transpiration. What's called transpiration? Excess amount of water is lost in the form of water vapor through stomata. That's called transpiration. So the water vapor from the leaf, inside the leaf. This is a leaf. This is a vascular tissue. Xylem, it is a phloem. Yes, it is a tissues. Water, excess amount of water takes place through stomata into the atmospheres by the simple process of diffusions. So transpiration also takes place are regulated by diffusions. Then another one is that's translocations of ion, mineral ions. See, maximum minerals plant absorbed in the form of ion, calcium ion, magnesium ion. So along with the water, if the water is enter into the root, along with certain mineral also entered by a simple process of diffusions. So diffusion is essential for translocations of ion molecule, and also transpiration. Excess amount of water is lost in the form of water vapor through stomata. It is also regulated by transpiration. And gaseous exchange, for example, carbon dioxide and oxygens. It is all these are regulated with the help of diffusion. Okay, thank you, students. And next class tomorrow we are going to discuss the next continuous part, facilitated diffusion. Thank you.